Kenyans are calling on the National Treasury and the Ministries of Energy, Petroleum and Agriculture to address, among other issues, the following. Noting that there exists a consumer protection mechanism to cushion Kenyans from adverse fluctuation in fuel prices. This mechanism is financed by the taxpayer at the pump through the Fuel Levy Fund. We ask, where is the 39 billion shillings Petroleum Development Levy Fund meant for the fuel subsidy program as this crisis deepens? The Auditor General has already raised questions on the irregular and illegal diversion of these consumer protection funds to state agencies and unnamed private entities. She has also decried abuse on the petroleum import system in favor of some preferred and politically connected oil marketers deliberately depriving Kenyans of the subsidy mechanism. Can the Treasury also confirm or deny that the diversion of funds has been used in debt servicing and infrastructure development without the approval of the National Assembly? Can the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum list the import quotas that have been allocated to oil marketers over the last 1 year, and which are these oil marketers by name? The people telling us about Ukraine and Russia are also telling us that there is no shortage of fuel. They are also trying to blame oil marketers. So they are even conflicted in the reasons why we have an artificial crisis in the country. From their own statement, they are not sure of what to say. Is it because of the war in Ukraine, or is it because of the crisis with our oil marketers? Which is which? And that goes to tell you that this crisis is orchestrated, and it is as a result of the cartels and barons who have taken over, using conflict of interest and state capture in our economy. I mean, a straight answer would be, how come that fuel in Uganda is cheaper than fuel in Kenya? So, and yet the fuel being sold in Uganda goes through Kenya. That tells you that that kind of explanation is escapist and has no basis whatsoever. We should address ourselves to the crisis that is there in the country and the monopolies that have taken our fuel and economic sector captive. Yes, my friend. Kiru Yanet, you don't live in Kenya. I mean, honestly. You know as much as I do the situation in Kenya. You know that what was government is now like the opposition, and what was the opposition is now behaving like it is government. It is that confusion that has visited on the people of Kenya an accountability problem, because there are no more clear lines between the people in the opposition and the people in government, because greedy people who are supposed to be discharging their responsibility on the other side of government, because of greed, decided to come and become cartels and barons in government. So the responsibility we are discharging here is because we believe in the citizenship of our republic. This is somebody else's responsibility, but we are forced to do it because we have the interests of the nation at heart, and we want the right thing to happen in Kenya. We would have chosen to keep quiet, But the crisis in Kenya cannot allow us to keep quiet. You know, we are locking the stable when the horse has already bolted. We will see what will happen, because this should have been addressed before we got ourselves into the crisis that we are currently in, before the long queues and before the suffering that the country is going through. As a result of the fuel crisis, we have serious price fluctuations in all basic food items, because to a great extent they are dependent on the prices of fuel. So as we go around this, just you may want to know that that supplementary estimate was brought just last week. You know, the fuel crisis has been long in coming, and you actually don't need the supplementary estimate to be able to deal with this. There was already money in the Petroleum Development Fund. Where did that money go? As I have told you, the Auditor General has raised queries of the diversion of that money into illegally and unconstitutionally and irregularly into areas that shouldn't have been the function of money meant for fuel subsidy. So the question still begs, what happened to the Petroleum Development Levy Fund? Why was the money diverted in the first place? Why was it diverted to state agencies? Why was it diverted to private entities? By the time the Auditor General is raising questions, it tells you there are millions of questions on matters to do with conflict of interest, corruption, and possibly what we have always said, state capture. Are we done? Good. Thank you very much.
The farmers, the way we have always supported the farmers.
Honourable Ruto, I'd like to speak about another issue that is a contributing factor to the cost of living, and that is the high cost of fuel in the country. What do you propose to do with that? Because there's also a current subsidy in place for that. What do you think is the solution to the rising cost of fuel, which, as you know, drives the cost of a number of other products?
I think the first thing that we need to do is to look at the taxes, because 50% almost of the cost of fuel in Kenya is taxes. I think it's time as a country we looked at, I think there are 15 different taxes on fuel. And I think it's time we relooked at how else do we raise revenue.
Which taxes would you be proposing to remove from fuel, the cost of fuel?
I think majority of the taxes that are in that bracket, I think there are almost 15 different taxes that are there. I do not have the specifics, but those 15, I think we need to interrogate these 15 different taxes. Which ones can we put aside so that, like other countries, we can limit the taxation on fuel? Take for example,
let me
VAT.
ask. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
Take for example VAT.
Correct.
I think we need to rethink taxation, VAT taxation on fuel. That was the latest inclusion of taxes on fuel. And I think it was very controversial.
Yeah, Honourable Ruto, VAT on petroleum products was indeed controversial. Let me take you back to 2013 when VAT was imposed on this as a condition by IMF. At the time, then Majority Leader Aden Duale said, and I quote, "The 181 members have been convinced by our party leader and our deputy party leader on the rationale of 8% VAT on petroleum products. He went on to say, 181 is a very big number, and we will convince our members from the NASA side. So you, at this point in the year 2015, I believe, when this was passed, were pushing for 8% to be added on VAT. Today, you are saying you want to abolish VAT on petroleum products. Why should Kenyans believe you today?
Why wouldn't they? I mean, we live in a dynamic country, and it's only fools who don't change their mind. If you are in a situation where the price of fuel has gone to 160, I mean, it's time to think. I mean, when this VAT was imposed, then the price of fuel was under 100.
Honorable Ruto, when the VAT was imposed, it was at the time a condition by IMF when we were seeking a precautionary facility. Today we find ourselves in the exact same position with a third tranche of an IMF facility, and once again they are calling for the same issue that we are facing with VAT then is the same one we are facing now. And at the point, IMF has in fact said that we do not need to be removing taxes on petroleum products. So with an IMF facility already in place, are you then saying you are going to go back to the IMF and renegotiate the terms of that loan that is already in place regarding IMF VAT on fuel products?
What's wrong with negotiating with IMF? I think any reasonable government, looking at the situation where we are, looking at the cost of living and how many Kenyans are every day sinking below the poverty line, I think it takes a courageous government to sit down with our development partners, and they are fairly reasonable people, and have a discussion. And I think they are, if not 8%, we need to renegotiate on some of the items that are outstanding. And apart from looking at that, there are other instruments that we can deploy.
You've just heard those clips from the past, recordings on Ruto just before he became president. So before he came to power, he stood on campaign platforms and told Kenyans that taxes on fuels were eating them alive. He cited figures up to 50% of the pump price going to the government. He wasn't entirely wrong to raise the alarm. This slide shows you exactly where your 214 goes. Start at the bottom. A barrel of crude oil today costs roughly 102 on the international market. Divide that across 159, convert to shillings, and you get 83 per liter of raw crude before anyone touches it. By the time the crude is refined, shipped across the ocean, stored at Mombasa, pushed through the pipeline to Nairobi, and distributed to your petrol station, you're already at 118. That's the landed cost. None of that is tax. Then comes the industry. Pipeline and storage adds about 540. Import and dealer margin adds 1920. And then the government's share, taxes and levies totaling about 72.38 across the 8 separate charges. So the final pump price is Kenya shillings 214.6. Ruto called this the system. The question we will come to is what he did once he came into power. So you pay 34% of what you pay is tax. This figure is going to be 34, but last month it was 37%. But remember, the fuel cost has just gone up a little higher. So the higher the fuel cost, the lower the percentage. So when fuel was at around 160, the 72 was representing about 50%. So he was about right. So 34% of what you pay is tax. Let's put a number to what Ruto was complaining about. When you break down that to 14.6 per liter of super petrol, the international cost, the actual price of buying, refining and shipping the fuel accounts for 54.3. Industry margins and distribution take another 11.3. Taxes and levies 72.38. So that was 36.6 before. So look at the 8 items on the right. Road maintenance levy at 25. So before he came into office, this was 18. So a 7 shilling has been added, which is also what Ndindi Nyoro has been talking about, that it can actually be rolled back to about 18. So excise duty at 22, VAT at 14.64. So the VAT that we are looking at here is at 8%. Then we have IDF, Railway Development Levy, and then Petroleum Development Levy. So the Petroleum Development Levy is what he was alluding to. This is money. Every time you fuel your car, it goes into a kitty. So this was introduced in 2021 in order to stabilize petroleum, so that when the price fluctuates, you don't go to the fuel station the following day and you find that the fuel has gone up again. So it was just meant to smoothen out the peaks because of the fluctuations that we have in the petroleum market. Now, here is where the story gets interesting. Ruto, when campaigning, said these taxes were suffocating ordinary Kenyans. He promised relief, but when the Finance Act 2023 was passed under his own government, VAT on fuel was not cut. It was doubled from 8% to 16%. If you recall, there was some protesting in 2023 in March. They were called the Sufuria protest. This was the reason. That single move added about 10 per litre to every Kenyan pump bill overnight. So, and unfortunately, some people also died during those protests, but in 2023, a much smaller number though than 2024. The Stabilisation Fund contribution on this slide, 0. Okay, meaning at this particular moment, consumers are bearing the full weight of the market with no cushion at all. Last month, there was about 5 shillings which was approved. Now they've taken it off all, so there's no subsidy on the fuel now. The only one that is left is on kerosene, which was not affected. So on diesel, nothing. So the fund that most Kenyans don't know about, this is the Petroleum Development Levy Fund, and it is the government's most powerful, least understood tool for managing fuel prices. Every litre of fuel in Kenya attracts 5.4 that goes into this fund. The idea is simple: collect money in good times, deploy it in bad times to prevent prices from spiking uncontrollably. Look at what it did for kerosene. The real cost of a litre of kerosene is approximately 260, but what a household pays at the pump is about 152. A subsidy of 89 per litre is bridging the gap, paid directly from this fund to oil marketing companies. Petrol cushion 0, diesel cushion 0. Those consumers are fully exposed to the global price at this point in time. But remember, they are still paying for the 5 shilling which goes into the fund. So in April 2026, the government deployed 6.2 from this fund in a single price cycle. In May, the figure is 5 billion, but this only applies to kerosene, which we have seen is being subsidized at the level of about 89. Here is the irony. Ruto repeatedly said before becoming president that subsidies were not sustainable and were a form of wasteful spending. His government scrapped the fuel subsidy in 2022, shortly after coming to power, but global prices and public pressure forced a reversal. Today, his government deploys billions from this very fund every single month and openly calls it stabilisation. Then, this is just a timeline to show you what has happened in the last few years. So, in July 2020, under President Kenyatta, the Petroleum Development Levy was raised from 40 cents to 5.4 shillings per litre. The legal challenge, Legal Notice 24, created the financial power to run a subsidy program. By April 2021, as post-COVID prices surged back globally, EPRA applied the subsidy for the very first time. Kenyatta's government used the fund to shield consumers. Then came September 2022, the Kenya Kwanza era, President Ruto took office, and his government almost immediately moved to reduce the subsidy, arguing it was fiscally reckless. For a period, the word subsidy disappeared from EPRA's official releases entirely. They called it stabilisation or compensation instead. But the mechanism never fully went away. And by 2026, the subsidy is back in full force. Kenya shillings 5 to 6 billion deployed every month. The same man who campaigned against the fuel subsidies is now one of the biggest deployers of them in Kenya's history. And finally, this gives you the legislative record, what actually changed in law, not just in rhetoric. In the Finance Act 2023, VAT on fuel jumped from 8% to 16%. This was the first major fuel tax action of Ruto's government, and it went in the opposite direction of his campaign promises. March 2023, the G2G deal. Under the Petroleum Importation Regulations, Kenya signed a government-to-government arrangement with Saudi Aramco, ADNOC and ENO. Fuel will now be imported on 180-day credit terms paid in shillings, meant to ease pressure on dollar. The shilling did stabilize, but fuel remained expensive because of fixed premiums built into the deal. Now, this is not entirely true. It says it was supposed to be paid in shillings, but in essence, that was the rhetoric, but it is paid in dollars. These partners cannot accept shillings. Then, July 2024, road maintenance levy hike. The levy was raised from 18 to 25 per litre, combined with the earlier VAT hike. Total taxes and levies on fuel hit their highest level on record. So December 2024, Cabinet extended the G2 deal and expanded it to include LPG, heavy fuel and bitumen, deepening Kenya's dependence on sovereign procurement rather than open market competition. So that is all I had for you today. If you found this useful, please like, share and subscribe. We are always here to give you the latest information, data analysis, so that you can be well informed about government policy. Please help this channel grow, and your margins will thank you. Bye.